Now. Okay, good. There is recording now. All right. Well, we haven't done this in God, what has it been like?
It's
Three
been a little,
months? Yeah, something like that. Life
not
now.
quite. It's been a little. It's definitely grass has definitely grown on the lawn since then, so quite a
You have
bit.
a lawn?
Okay, no, I hire people to take
So,
care of it.
okay,
So
so the thing is, Jeremy's pointing at his watch, being like, "There's a storm a coming, Johnny." So apparently we might be joined by a couple dogs, children, and Jeremy's wife in here in a little bit. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, my friends. Welcome to Karate Without Belts. Long overdue. Jeremy and I have had the spring into summer workathon happening on both our respects. So Jeremy, how the hell are you doing?
just it's busy. I mean, it's just been exhausting lately. So yeah, it's a lot of travel, a lot of. I mean, not like airplane travel, but a lot of windshield time travel around where I'm at, and it's just been go this part, go way south, go way north, go way east, so it's just part of the game, so
No.
it's just been busy, but I mean, I can't complain. I mean, I still like what I do, so that's cool. That and the rental houses down at the Lake of the Ozarks, they've been going pretty good. um I almost had one dock start floating out into the main channel because the cable broke. So that was an unexpected treat and expense I wasn't planning on, but that's okay.
Unexpected swimming training.
well,
Unexpected flotation training.
well, at least I didn't get stuck out there. That's what I'm saying. So,
Cool.
so
Cool. How's training been lately?
it's been picking up. Um, I've definitely been focusing a lot more on basics, a lot more on analysis of technique lately. Um, so that part's been good. So
Okay. Right on. Right on. Yeah, I've been fighting in kind of a, like Monday, Tuesday crunch to like start a week of training and then for whatever reason, like the middle of the week get derailed. What weirdly enough had apparently I've been bleeding out one of my ears. Yeah, it was just weird. And then like I had this like horrible experience with like an ear doctor. And I mean they fixed my ears, but they were just like not like they weren't telling me why I was bleeding. And they were saying it wasn't bleeding, like contradicting like what I had seen and another doctor had told me. But now I've like got like I guess elevated levels of hearing. Like I've got like Matt Murdock levels of hearing now. I'm hearing things I haven't heard in years. But Jeremy had accosted me on a topic. Something we had I mean, it's something we always kind of are in the orbit of, but not always completely address. And I'll pass the ball over to Jeremy to kind of get this one started. I have some thoughts I think they'll work better on a back end, but Jeremy, how about you get us rolling on this?
yeah, I really started thinking about just kind of how things are going right now, just socially, uh, especially here in the United States. I mean, you can turn on the news and it's just like it's more intense than I can ever remember. Um, and what I mean by that is like assault here, gunshots, carjackings. Um, I mean, people getting robbed on like subways and nobody helping them, and I mean, like almost kind of like a breakdown in society right now. And so one of
As
the
not to be
things,
alarmist.
yeah, not to be alarmist, but especially with some of the other things, something, and I always pay attention to these kind of weird little things. Walked into a store the other day, and I never thought I'd ever see baby formula locked up. And well, I mean, That's
Yeah.
due to supply chain and things like that. But I mean, I've seen where people have gotten into fights because somebody bought a thing of baby formula and the other parent didn't get there in time, and they're just trying to feed their kid. I mean, that's where things are at right now, and it's kind of scary. And so, well, I mean, scary, but it's just like, okay, these are things to be alert of, you know, definitely. And kind of what I brought up to John was, you know, how do we self check where we're at in our level of training, in our level of awareness? What do we do? And it's not so much, I'll be perfectly honest, I don't have all the answers on this, but I can share some of the things that I do.
Yeah.
And I would love to have people comment on this episode, like left, right, inside out, upside down. I mean, how do you self check what you're doing, how you're training, and what you're training in is effective, and if how do you know it is? So
Yeah, and I think this goes down to you can only be prepared for so much.
right,
I was talking to somebody asked me yesterday is like what's karate? Where like it's not like boxing. You don't actually teach the fighting. And I was like, well, the thing is, karate can do a lot of different things. And one thing I brought out, especially from the American context, is that karate is like introduced, or at least for a while was being introduced to like police as self-defense, and is not always necessarily meant to kind of fuse in the way we think of like police work now, or like self-defense in terms of like dealing with situations. There's a thought out there that's not necessarily wrong in saying that karate really can't prepare you for everything on the street. Like
right,
really can't prepare you for that. Not saying that I don't necessarily agree with that, but I understand where people would come from that perspective and saying
yeah,
straight up karate can't prepare you for that. It's something you do in a gym.
right.
I
Now,
don't entirely adopt that view, but I understand it.
yeah, in the preference that I kind of want to tag on to that comment as well. Is like you can never. I don't care who you are or what you're learning. There's no way you can learn every situation that's going to pop up.
Yeah.
Never. I mean, that's the bottom line. I guess I'll just jump right in on kind of some of the things that I do.
Sure.
Some of the things that I do is it was another one of some right. Bleh, bleh, bleh. Sorry, just got
Welcome to vocal recordings, Jeremy. Sometimes this happens.
it out. One of the people that I trained with, many for several years, he said one of the instructors used to take him through activities where they would go through malls and shopping centers and pay attention to what people were doing and try to figure out what they're going to do ahead of time. Now, I'm not doing quite that, but I do pay attention to just people in general, what they do, how they carry themselves. Specifically in shopping centers or Costco or things like that.
Public
Um,
places.
huh?
Public places.
Yeah, I mean, not too many, but the thing that I think is very interesting is how utterly clueless some people become, especially in Costco. But I mean, as my kids like to call it, big food. That's where you go to get big food. Lots and lots. I mean, no, I mean, where else can you go to get a box of 160 Rice Krispie treats in one time? I mean, it's like, all right, I get that, but I mean, you watch people walk in the middle of the aisle and not pay attention to anybody around them. They'll,
Wegmans.
huh?
You asked about where else could you do that? Wegmans.
Whitemans.
I guess this is an East Coast thing. Something
Uh,
my dad, a place my dad used to go, and just like I bought in bulk, and like he was just, he never didn't live with us, and sometimes would just be like, I bought a lot of food in bulk. Here's food, buy. I guess it was his like way of saying it's like yeah, I'm still looking out for you. Look, I bought all these like Rice Krispie treats from Wegmans. So
oh,
like,
okay.
yeah, I guess is probably prior to the Costco explosion, which reached the shores of Japan, though not in terms of as many as you'd think, but like definitely in the major cities. There's at least one Costco.
Hey, hey, that's all right. I can dig with that, but except not when there's a ton of people. But anyway, that's beside the point. But I watch how utterly clueless some of these people are when they're going through there, and they'll just throw stuff in their carts or on their buggies or whatever, and it's just like, what in the heck are you going to do with that? It's like, I mean, granted, I get it. It's not my family or this, that, and the other thing, but it's like they'll run into other people to get something, and it's like, or to go to the food samples or whatever. It's just like, good night, people. That's one thing, and then the parking lot's a whole nother deal. But anyway, that's beside the point. But I just I guess I'd like to get tips as well as some of the things I do. But like some of the other things I do, like in preparation for that, I'll start looking at store shelves on staple goods. And you think, why is that? And I'm like, because if you're getting into a shortage of something and somebody needs it, what level of desperation are they going to get into? You know? How far are they going to take their desperate need to get some product?
I think we can flash back to actually one of our episodes, one of our shortest episodes, was talking about like when COVID first started. You were talking to me about how people were like screaming and yelling and trying to get like toilet paper and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, you'd have fist
that's in
fights.
our track record here, actually, weirdly enough.
But I mean, from that, I started watching. Okay, like for the longest time, it's pet food. Now it's baby formula, and pretty soon it's getting ready to be meat. I mean, I'm watching some of the things that are going on with that, and then I mean, talking to some friends of mine that own farms around here. You know, I'm friends with some farmers and stuff like that, and they're like, there's a lot of shortage coming as far as corn, wheat, different staple goods like that make, other goods. And it's like, when's that going to start showing up? So, not so much to get into like, I don't want to get into, prepper universe or anything like that.
Yeah,
But
that's not where we're.
that's not where we're going. I don't want to do that. But I take notice of that to where it's like, when's that level of desperation from people going to kick in?
Well,
And like I said, the cat food thing was kind of interesting because one, I'm not a fan of cats. I mean, they're kind of cool. When they're kittens, they're like, oh, they're just so cute and fluffy, and you just kind of pet them and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of cool.
and they're the worst roommate in the world.
Yes.
Once they grow up, they're like the worst roommate in the world. They
Oh,
annoy you for no reason, and then like they just expect you to give you for you to give them everything.
it's. I mean,
We're firm pro dog on this podcast.
yeah. I mean, we we had a cat, and then I used to have a blind pug dog. Okay, something about me, I love pug dogs. Okay, I've had about 8 of them throughout my life. Um, I had a blind pug dog, and it was coming. The little blind pug dog was coming down the stairs one day, and the cat, literally, it was a Tom and Jerry episode. The cat stuck its paw out to trip the blind pug dog down the stairs, and it was just, I mean, literally, it's, just And she gets up and she's barking, and she, because of her eyesight was great, she runs right into a wall and starts barking at the wall. It was just, it, it was like, oh my goodness. But why anybody have a cat, I have no idea, but that's beside the point. The main thing was is there's a huge shortage of cat food up until about last month. I mean, people were coming in, they would go to the aisle, and then you just hear them just yell, where the hell, where are you gonna get this at? Where are you gonna get that in? And
Yeah, because as if the employee of any given chain store in the United States has any sort of control over any of that,
right. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's very,
or
very
anywhere else for that matter.
well. I mean, there is a little control, but not much. I
Yeah,
mean,
from like a
you
managerial perspective, but like you're
right.
just a regular dude like pushing a cart, like you
Yeah.
ain't got no control over that. Like,
No, no. And I mean, and I see that piece, and people were getting angry about that. I see the thing with baby formula. That one's different. I'm watching parents. This is no joke. I watch parents come in to try to get baby formula. There's none on the shelves, and they'll just start break down crying. And that's a different emotion that's going on. But I mean, how where's that going to lead to? You know, and what do you need to prepare for people that are that desperate? So um, that,
well,
that that's kind of the stuff that I just take note and what's short and things like that. But anyway, that's
and it comes down to like if we can provide an image here. Um, I think this is what most people have of an image of somebody who does karate, is where like the patience and the virtue of patience, like, and the virtue of like being like in the very least a stabilizing force around you. That doesn't necessarily mean like using like the physical stuff that we do. That
right.
means like using like this social. This is as much about social acumen and as much about like situational acumen
Yeah,
that supposedly is supposed to be connected to that. And I feel either culturally or kind of misunderstood culturally, how people perceive it's like the meditative, supposed monk, right, is supposed to be like the one who stops everything. No, this is just about social acumen, being able to read the situation, being able to easily, not easily, but being able to, be the right person for the situation, right? And that may either mean commenting, not commenting, right?
yeah,
Um, being that and a stabilizing force around others, which is hard to ask of anybody. But I mean, this is the thing that training is supposed to lead to, right?
yeah,
Not necessarily full contact fighting, but like making sure that that doesn't happen.
yeah. Exactly.
So
Yeah, exactly.
it's like the
Exactly.
one thing I said to somebody way back, not way back, but I guess a couple of years ago when I was teaching someone privately, and the person was of shorter stature, and they were like, "Well, what's one thing I should do?" And it's like, I was like, say hello to somebody. I mean, it's like if you're walking down the street and you're worried about somebody mugging you or worried about someone like going crazy or something like that, say hello to them. That will shake them. That will probably give you time to kind of walk away. Because even though that's like you're not attacking them, you're not hitting them, how many times do people say hello to other or greet others on the street? Greet people they don't know,
Yeah.
right? And
Um,
in a situation where you're like that person could hurt me, you just say hello. And you say hello like that could like shake that person and be like, "What?" And that just shows that person's not actually paying attention. That person's not going to hurt you. That person's not a threat. And it
well,
gives you a kind of like radius to walk away from a situation, or like, okay, you that person knows you know where they are.
yeah.
So in kind of in your, I don't know, social compass or in your locational compass, you can kind of at least know that person's not going to be an issue.
Yeah, and I'd tie on the whenever you do it, make eye contact. Because at that point it's like boom, and they know there's a connection between the two of you, and therefore, yeah. But yeah, I'm very situational aware. The other thing is like one of the other things I do out and about is I look at how like I'll pick somebody and I'll watch how they walk and how they carry themselves, how they move. And it's like, okay, this person's right hand dominant. This person does this. I mean, that's kind of what I try to do. Whether they're a threat or not, it just kind of keeps my mind sharp while I'm out and stuff. And the other thing near where I work at, there's I wouldn't say homeless, I'd say transient people who are transient, because very, very close to where I work at, there's a large rail yard. People jump on those rail cars and go. I mean, like the old hobos.
Like,
and
really?
They do. Oh yeah. It's pretty interesting watching them. Just kind of you can just watch them through the rail yard and just like they'll just scamper off and see a open rail car, and boom, they're in and they're going to wherever. So, but I mean, in the meantime, while they're there, I mean, they're going to try and find food. They're going to try and, I mean, I haven't run into any that have been mean, but I'm not going to not pay attention to it and stuff. So,
well, I mean, that's an entirely different issue, right? Whether or not how I wouldn't want to make any kind of unfounded comment here, but the issue there, especially in the United States, is really, really dark, and it's getting darker for no real reason. It is a social problem that should be dealt with on not a social but political level, and unfortunately it's being just the bare minimum. Of course they're going to do this, because why would they do anything else but not to help people? And I spent a lot of time in my youth trying to help those people, and most of the time it does not end up in a violent manner. Most people believe it will. Most of those people just essentially are disenfranchised.
right.
And so what I always say is just, it's the same situation. Just say hello, and it's there's nothing wrong with talking to those people. There's obviously people with issues, right? But again, it goes in that situation where it's like you have to be that stabilizing force where you are, right? If that's what your training means, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've actually had instances where people that have come off these rail cars have either jumped through our fences or whatever, and then taken fleet vehicles and stuff like that, and therefore they're gone. So it's whatever. But people that I've run into that are just homeless and around the area, yeah, I have not had any issues. It's just, okay, what's this person's agenda? What do they want to do? I mean, or do they have some type of intent involved? I mean, and it's specifically that branch of transient people. So I've run into a couple that are really, really nice, and they'll just sit down and at the gas station and eat stuff, and they may ask for water or whatever. It's no big deal. Okay, not a problem. But then you got other people that maybe they have something else in mind. So,
well, that's where you see people again. I go back to that image of the person who's supposed to be the stabilizing force in this situation. right? Because what you do could affect where that person like goes, right? Where
Right.
if you are going to be a person who essentially puts somebody out, you could lead to somebody coming back at you, right?
Yeah.
Not saying that will happen, but it could. But if
Yeah.
you're somebody to at least be kind of like that stabilizing force around others, right? Um, I think that is one thing I come back to. I think a lot of people try to
Yeah.
when they talk about people who've done martial arts training to do that situational awareness, because I mean it's not just even like the physical training in that regard, because
Yeah.
the physical training could be something that helps, it could be something that doesn't help.
Yeah. Now,
um
I was just thinking of something else. This is kind of funny, but this happened a couple months ago. I was in one of the gas stations. There was an argument breaking out inside the gas station, in the convenience mart or whatever you want to call it. And so I'm like, okay, I gotta get over there. How do I get over there without either causing more friction or whatever? So I kind of thought about what Sensei Oyata did, you know, and so all of a sudden I start creating just kind of a fake limp and just kind of limp through over there. Oh, excuse me, so sorry. I don't mean to break up your conversation. Oh, no problem. And what was funny is right after that they kind of broke up and went away. But I wasn't trying that. I was just trying to get over. I think it was just to use the bathroom or whatever. I had to go on the other side of the convenience mart, but I just started doing this little fake little limp, and it's like,
the
it's
little
kind of
things can give you time. It is, we can call the title of this episode "The Little Things That Create Time," because like
yeah, yeah,
because it's just those things. Like it's interesting you bring this up, because I was thinking about this the other day, and in kind of a negative sense is like, how many of these like little tricks and nonsense things do you hear like karate people peddle, and like people will be like, yeah, I can't use that in self-defense, can't use that in full contact fight.
a little bit.
Yet 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 there's application for them
Yeah,
in the right situation.
right. I mean, Grant's old saying was that 101% of all statistics are made up numbers, but it's it's if you just get in somebody's head just a little bit, you create enough of a buffer to kind of either calm things down or take care of whatever you need to take care of. And it doesn't have to be technique wise and stuff.
Well, it's not even being in someone's head. It's just making some form of a connection with someone where like you're I don't want to say being seen or something like that, or whatever the kind of nomenclature is these days, which I don't even get what they're talking about when they say that. But it's just more a matter of like, all right, like I know you're there, I'm here. That's that. Like you
Yeah,
don't there's nothing more that needs to happen.
yeah,
And it actually helps that people do that rather than not. And I weirdly enough, I learned this from customer service. Like I learned a
okay,
lot of that from a lot of those cues from just like sitting behind a counter at a place. And that's where a lot of like when I was younger, I had like learned like all this like self defense stuff, and then it was like sitting behind a counter being like, all right, what would give me the time? What would happen if somebody came at me from like these angles, right? What would
hmm,
I need to do to stop people from doing something?
yeah.
Just from like being essentially being barricaded behind like a circular counter, and like not being able to do anything quickly, right?
It's interesting you bring that up. I mean, I have shifted my focus from doing that as to looking at people and like, I wonder what they're thinking about. I wonder how I can make a connection with them on just something else other than, like, here's an example. At the grocery store, what was it? I do most of the grocery shopping, so I do a lot of the cooking in the house, but that's okay. Um, but I noticed was that one lady was just buying steaks left and right one day. And I just told her, I was like, you got a major cookout going on, or what's going on? You know, I just kind of asked her what was up. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of steaks. You know, it's just something passing. And you're right, it did just kind of shake her, and it was just like, well, you know, we got this, and this. I was like, oh, okay, cool. You know, but it was something to totally get that connection like you're talking about. And I think that's a lot of what our self protection, self defense really gets on or counts on is how we connect. I mean, it's not just a right cross. I mean, it's just it, you know, part of it is like Sensei Oyama used to say, use whatever you got to use to give yourself enough time to do what you got to do.
Which does not always mean hitting. Which does not always
Exactly.
mean like punching in the gut. But I
Yeah.
mean that I mean that is as I mean this is the issue, and this is kind of goes back to some things we've been talking about before, whereas like when people say like what is the use of karate, and then we see things where it's like people are like, well, tie the guy down and punch him in the gut or something like that, and then like that'll make him strong enough for this, that, and the other. When it's just like you can learn just as much in terms of like dealing with situations socially, as much as like doing stuff in the dojo. Now, does that mean you trade one for the other? No,
No.
right? You do
They, they,
both.
yeah. I mean, yeah, they do go together, believe it or not, even though we're talking more of the social aspect of it now.
Yeah.
But I think knowing how people move, understanding this kind of stuff brings another level of awareness. And then I think, okay, once you start getting into things, it's like, okay, how do I take that level of awareness to another step? And that's obviously in the social realm. So,
Which is funny because if you think about the kind of the psychology of people who do martial arts, a lot of like the people who aren't just there because it's something they can do on a Tuesday or Friday night, a lot of them are like, this is a good conversation for a different topic, but like a lot of people are loners, or a lot of people are like very like singular. A lot of guys, at least I think from our space and the generation who's learned karate, have been like people who are very singular, people who are not like necessarily the most socially apt, right? People who are like okay, like weren't like big with team sports, weren't big with like necessarily like being a part of all of that. I know you were big into basketball when you were in high school, but like that doesn't like necessarily mean like everybody. A lot of people I knew who like did karate like weren't into those other things.
and
So and they ended up
most,
being good.
yeah, most that I see were like football. Usually, football is usually the one that usually seems to prevail most of like any team sports. A lot of them were a part of. Wrestling, I mean wrestling, but wrestling's not really a team sport.
Yeah, and
So
like and I mean I think that's culturally a Missouri thing. Not saying that the rest of the states doesn't have that, but it's like a lot of people in my generation were like if they were doing karate, they really weren't doing the other stuff. Like they really weren't also doing like the other sports that are around them.
yeah,
Maybe they
but
did when they were younger or something, but like a lot of them had like seen martial arts as that singular thing, which would make them look antisocial.
right.
They weren't, but like
But it is funny. I mean, think about this. How social are most of the people in karate with each other?
yeah,
I mean, it's like, it's kind of like, oh boy.
that's an ego issue.
Well,
Um,
not so much that, but I mean, it's, I go back to, I never thought I'd use a quote from Shrek, but it's like, you know, wow, it talks. Yeah, it's getting him to shut up's the problem. I mean, it's almost like, I mean, how many times have we, celebrated like belt? belt ceremonies and stuff like that. And then afterwards, I mean, we're up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning just shooting the bull with each other, just,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
I,
think
I
that
mean,
yeah, and that's a different I mean, that's celebration and it's a little different, but I mean, it's
but,
interesting that go ahead, yeah.
I mean, it does bring out people who are loners to where they are socially no longer social invalids, I guess. But, it's
Yeah.
like, and I mean, they start understanding people as well. And I think that's part of it as well too. So
Well, and it's interesting that like a lot of I think that that's something that's symptomatic of kind of recent years, where people are kind of lacking in like community, and then like people are like sort of, like thanks to a lot of different things like social media, like the internet age, now with like COVID, it's even kind of intensified this, is that we're farther and farther away from just a local community, being a part of anything, feeling closer to anything really.
yeah,
And then sometimes this is the thing that I liked about karate, was like when I was a kid, was like it was another group I could be a part of that wasn't generally with those other things I was with.
yeah,
Um, but it was weird. I remember I was 18 and I was invited to a dinner with a bunch of other people at a seminar, and I was like, oh wow. I was 18, so it was like, was I a child? Was I not a child? Like I was like technically not, but it was still like
yeah,
super young. And just like being around people and like seeing how casual everyone was, I was like, wow. I guess I was in like with people who weren't that casual, or weren't that like didn't it didn't translate right with the people I was working with that time, like on being on that social level, being that person to
mhm,
be that calming force. Um, I think that's one thing we can kind of take away from this discussion, is like, you don't the little tricks of karate, the kind of the mental and the social training is just as important as the physical, and especially
yeah,
in this day and age,
yeah.
with everything
And
going on.
I mean, we talk about the physical side of it, but I mean, you're dealing with people outside of the dojo, so there has to be the social aspect involved in one way, shape, or form. You know,
Mm.
and I mean, whether it's de-escalation or escalation. You one of the I it's interesting we're talking about this, but I remember when I used to work security for Arrowhead Stadium, or for the Kansas City Chiefs. This basically I was a bouncer in the biggest bar in Kansas City on Sundays, but um, the guy I was working with,
Jeremy's roadhouse stint, as it were.
I,
Did you live
I
in a farmhouse? Did you have multiple cars that you drove around in?
I mean, Kansas City's not that backwoods. All right, now, come on, man. I mean, just because you fly in and you see cows out in the pasture along the runway, it doesn't mean much. But hey, that's all right. But
I've flown into Kansas City many times, Jeremy, and I can say I have never seen that. So
there's a farm just off to the one of the runways, and yeah, there are cows every once in a while. When you fly in here, it'll. I don't know how it's going to be with the new airport, but anyway, that's. But anyway, but one of the guys I was working with, and basically he was the one that trained me. I was going to go into law enforcement, and a couple acts happened out there, and I'm like, I do not want to see this every day. I just that was me. I felt like I would really mess with who I was. But the guy said, you will get much further if you're able to communicate and talk with people than going up to people and just automatically blowing a situation up, and then all of a sudden you got a fight on your hands just like that. It's never a good thing.
be nice. It's a job.
No, I mean, he goes, it's not, you don't have to be nice, but it's like a lot of times people, even when they're drunk, they just want to be heard, you know? And
Okay.
that probably got us out of that probably got us out of a lot of altercations, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and this is why I don't. It's interesting you kind of went back and said like you didn't want that to affect your personality because you're always having to be that stabilizing force, right?
Yeah, I mean,
It, it, it
and
can it can it can really 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 mess you up after a certain like if that becomes your job, like you're on 10 20 or 10 or 8 10 hours a day with that.
yeah, and I'll just tell you the actual event that really, to this day, I mean, I have a hard time even going out to a Chiefs game anymore, just due to this, because if I walk past this area, it brings back that memory. And I'll never forget. What was it? One night we had to pull out a 16-year-old girl out of a limo that OD'd on. I think I know what it was, but I
Yeah.
I could be completely wrong, but she OD'd, and that was like, with the Kansas City Police Department that was there. They're like, yeah, this happens more than you think. And it's like, I just didn't. I don't want. I know that happens. I don't want to deal with that on a daily basis. That's just something that drove me. I had a hard time coming back to work after that, and so,
Yeah.
but I mean, I'm glad I learned it there instead of being in a job that I would have hated. When people are trying to count on me. So
Yeah. I think that goes in kind of like the kind of when I say karate's supposed to prepare you for that, it's not a 24/7 type of a deal.
no.
And I think that's where people get a lot of people wrong when they do say you do karate, like you're supposed to know all of this. No, because they're still humans,
Yeah,
right? And like they're not like that doesn't transform you. It just means you're probably better prepared to handle that situation at that time. But that
yeah,
doesn't mean over a sustained period of time that's not going to be like you're not supposed to handle it 24/7 or even on a regular basis. It's only supposed to happen like once or twice and kind of like that. So I can speak as someone who's a teacher, like you can kind of go on autopilot with it because you're not always trying to break stuff up. And this is the thing where especially I think about this now because I'm older now. Than like when I initially started. Like if you yell and scream at a kid, right? It does not help you. It might help you in that moment to stop a situation. But it's like what I've seen people yell and scream at a kid for like 10 or 15 minutes and get in their face and whatnot. Like, okay, that kid's gonna come to school the next day and you're still gonna have to deal with them.
yeah,
Right? Like you're not gonna be able to deal with them well, like going forward. Like it's not gonna work. Even if you try to smooth things over, it's not gonna work. So you need to like know when you strategically use that and only use it when but most of the time you're supposed to kind of unify the situation, right? You're not
yeah,
supposed to harm the situation.
yeah,
Um and it's a lesson I think most people have to learn the hard way. Um to speak to your situation, which you just talked about, kind of in a less kind of harsher way, but cool.
so
Anything else we want to touch on there?
no, I think it's definitely been an interesting conversation. I like I said, I'd love to see what people comment on it. I mean, I think that's really what I'd like to see. But
Cool.
cool.
Well, Jeremy, what's going on with you this week in terms of training?
Um, Getting back to basics, just that, and I'm also starting to teach my son a little bit on stick fighting and stuff like that. So that's been kind of fun. So
Cool.
So,
Cool. Yeah, I'm just trying to roll into summer here, and then I'm gonna try to assemble a bag correctly this time, and hopefully, hope for the best there. Cool. Jeremy,
sure.
thanks for bringing up that topic. It actually turned out real great. Thank you for always joining me. Thanks everybody for listening. Don't forget to keep on training.